Good evening, and welcome to the monthly Study in the US series organized by the US Consulate General Mumbai for those interested in studying in the United States. My name is Sitta Ryder, and I'm the Deputy Cultural Attaché at the US Consulate General Mumbai. One of our top priorities in the US-India relationship is promoting greater educational ties between our countries and encouraging Indian students to enroll in one of America's more than 4,500 colleges and universities. Finding a best fit school, applying, and being accepted to a US school is a long process that requires significant work. So I would like to congratulate you all on receiving admissions offers and your I-20s. I hope you will find US colleges and universities to be welcoming environments that value your international perspectives and that benefit from the diversity of experiences that you all bring. Now, I would like to introduce a consular officer from the US Consulate General Mumbai, who will provide detailed information about the student visa application and interview process. She will also explain some of the F-1 visa regulations. Ms. Iette Salet is the Deputy Fraud Prevention Manager in the US Consulate General Mumbai. She previously served at the US Embassy in New Delhi from 2018 to 2020. She has adjudicated over 40,000 non-immigrant and immigrant visas in India. Prior to joining the US Department of State, Yvette worked at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, for 7 years as an emergency manager. Yvette grew up in Chicago. She speaks Arabic, and she earned her graduate degree in public administration from DePaul University. I would also like to welcome Education USA advisor Ryan Pereira, who will answer questions and queries that are non-visa related after Yvette's presentation. Ryan manages Education USA activities and Fulbright fellowships at the United States India Educational Foundation for Western India. He has a doctorate in biochemistry from Ohio State University. After his PhD program, Ryan trained in the Department of Molecular Medicine at Cornell University as a postdoctoral fellow and as a research associate. Returning to India in December 2009, he taught various courses at St. Xavier's College, Mumbai, before joining USIEF as an Education USA advisor. Ryan has more than 10 years of experience guiding students who are interested in pursuing their studies in the United States. And with that, I would like to congratulate you and wish you best luck in embarking on your studies in the United States. And now I turn it over to Yvette. Thank you and enjoy the session.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Pereira, and I'll be taking the first part of the presentation, the very brief presentation on how to apply for the US student visa. Next slide. As Sitta mentioned, the US continues to be a sought-after destination for international students to pursue their higher studies. And we'll enjoy doing these talks because you all will help increase the number of international students currently studying in the US. So currently there are just over 9 lakh international students from all over the world. And of this 9 lakhs, a significant amount, next slide, 167,000 of those international students are from India. That means 1 out of every 5 or 6 international students is from India. So the US has been and continues to be a preferred destination for Indian students to pursue higher studies. We make up the 2nd largest foreign nationality studying in the United States. So as Sitta mentioned, I want to congratulate each and every one of you on being admitted to a US university. And we will, next slide. And now we will, so y'all have done all this hard work of the application process, and we're right at the last step, which is actually applying for the student visa. So I now invite Yvette to take over.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for that introduction. One second. Am I audible and can you visibly see me?
Yes, we can, and we can see you as well.
One second. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sitta. Thank you, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to answer all of your questions. I know that student season is a stressful time, but I do wish you all the best of luck in advance. Ryan, next slide. Great. So everybody wants to know, what is the current operational status? So as of November 2008, we are now processing visa applications for all individuals physically present in India. More or less, we're back to normal operations. However, COVID regulations have created backlogs, as you can imagine. Next slide. So we ask you to please be flexible regarding your visa appointment date. Student visas remain a top priority for the US mission, and we're going to continue to prioritize students above all other visa classes. And a record number of student visa applications were issued in 2021, over 120,000 processed in 2021, and we hope for an even bigger year this year. Next. So we have a new waiver, new interview waiver policy that states that if you've never had a visa rejection and you've had a visa that was valid anytime in the last 48 months, that means it could have expired 4 years ago, but you had a visa in any visa class, you can drop off your passport and you get an interview waiver. You do not actually have to appear for the interview. So that is great. The visa officer would then review your application on paper. They would either do one of two things. They would either approve it, or if they had any questions, they would call you in for an interview. So that's how it works. Next slide. Okay, so in anticipation for another record-breaking student season, we've opened up thousands of additional visa appointments and expanded our interview waiver options for students. As of December 2021, students who currently have or previously held a US visa can apply using the Dropbox in lieu of an in-person interview, as I mentioned. And for all students, those who are Dropbox eligible and those who need walk-in appointments, here are some tips to be prepared. So just be prepared. Be prepared as early as possible with that I-20 in hand. Apply early, don't wait. You can go all the way across the India mission, all of our consulates and our embassy in order to get that visa appointment. And we encourage students to schedule visa appointments as soon as they receive their I-20. To help spread out the demand for visa appointments and ensure that as many students travel before their start date as possible. No, we can stay on this slide. And throughout the spring, we'll continue to interview a limited number of students for off-cycle and summer admission. We plan to open most student visa appointments for fall admission in mid-late spring, when the majority of schools have issued their I-20s for their upcoming classes. So essentially, in the next week or so, visa appointments are going to open up, and they're going to open up from June onwards. So the visa application process is request an I-20 from your university. That's your first step. Hopefully you guys all have that in hand. You complete the DS-160 online, ciac.state.gov, and you create a user account. Then you pay your fee. That is the third step of the process. Next slide, please. Then you schedule 2 appointments. The first appointment is the biometrics appointments at the visa application center. And you cannot schedule that more than 50 days prior to your scheduled interview date. Do bring your passport and your DS-160. And the second will be the appointment you are making at the consulate or embassy. The final step is to pay your SEVIS fee. SEVIS is administered by the Department of Homeland Security, and it stands for Student Exchange Visitor Information System. And so there is that additional fee that you also need to pay, and those are the steps for getting to that visa appointment. I will say also, you'll get a DS-260 barcode. Go ahead and bring out the barcode with you, and a photo. You can passport size photo in case the system doesn't pick up your photo from that first biometrics appointment. It's good to have that on hand. Your SEVIS receipt in case there's a system issue and the visa officer is not able to see that you have paid your SEVIS online. That'll save you a lot of headaches. And of course, your passport, which should have a 6-month validity, and your I-120. Those are all the things that you absolutely must have when you come to your visa appointment. Next. All right, so your interview. Believe it or not, sometimes your interview could just be 1 minute long. The visa, you'll basically be in a waiting room with a long snake line of other visa applicants. Most of them at this time will be students. You'll probably be really nervous. You'll see other people before you probably get approved, and sometimes you see people get rejected, and that'll probably scare you. But hang in there. You step up to the visa officer. Go ahead and give them your I-20 and your passport. Those are the 2 things that they'll need. They don't spend a lot of time chit-chatting. They'll just straight up ask you, why do you want to study there? What are you studying? Things like, how are you going to pay for your education? What does your father do for a living? So yes, it does get personal. So we evaluate students based on set criteria. We want to evaluate that they're sufficiently prepared for their education. They have a credible plan to pay for their education and expenses, and we think that they will use their visa appropriately. Generally, if we think you're prepared for your education and you have the financial means to fund it, we will believe that you will use your visa appropriately. My biggest tips for you are, go ahead and practice a couple times with your mom, your dad, your friend. You don't need to be overly rehearsed, but know what you're going to say. Know why you want to go to your program. Know why you selected your school. They may ask you how many schools you applied to. Be honest. If you've had, backlogs or bad grades, you can be honest about that too, but try practicing beforehand as to that you cleared your backlogs, or maybe you had extracurricular activities. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. Just be prepared for those types of questions. Make sure that you explain your finances really well. You can talk about what your father does, but also you can mention what your mother does, and that maybe you have X amount of property that is paid off. Whatever that picture is, you should know how to frame it for the visa officer. If you're using a loan, you may not have to tell the visa officer that it's a secured loan versus not secured, what bank it is, what's the interest rate, but you should know that information. And if you've taken out a large loan, but you actually have no intention of using it because you have sufficient savings, you can also say that, we did this as a backup. However, this is actually how we're gonna finance my education. I can't overstate how important it is for you to paint a clear picture of your finances. If your English isn't the greatest, that's okay, but do practice your English coming up to the interview. Sometimes when you get a little nervous, maybe the officer is speaking really fast, just know that so that you can stay calm ahead of time. And I think those pointers can help you do a little bit better on that interview. Next, please. So hopefully you'll be approved. The officer will give you back your I-20. It's really important that you retain your I-20. And if you ever leave the country, you also need to have your I-20 on you. That's a very important document. The officer will not keep that. They will, however, keep your passport. You'll receive an email or SMS when your visa is ready, and that's usually done in 3 to 5 business days. Next, please. So there are a couple dates to remember. You can't apply for your visa interview more than 120 days before the program start date, and you can't enter the United States more than 30 days before the report date on that I-20. And the visa validity will be the validity of your program on the I-20. You do need your COVID vaccine, and you shouldn't count on getting a waiver for that. So if you don't have your COVID vaccine, I would say get your dose, get your second dose, and be prepared, because those are travel requirements at the moment. If you have any questions, we have a few websites, ustraveldocs.com. I also always recommend my Education USA advisors. They have a lot of information and can always answer your questions. You could always email us at support-india@ustraveldocs.com. That DS-160 that we're talking about, you can always go in the system and change that yourself. But if for some reason you're not able to, you can go ahead and email us on that website. So again, I wish you all the best of luck. I think we have a lot of time for questions, and I'm happy to answer as many as I possibly can for y'all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvette. Let's get straight to the questions. And the first question we have is, how much funding with respect to the I-20 is required to be shown during the visa interview?
So generally, visa officers are not going to look at documents beyond the documents that I've already mentioned in this presentation, your I-20, your passport. However, if you do have financial documents, especially if it's a scholarship letter or any sort of grants, you may bring them with you just in case you do happen to have that one visa officer that will ask. But generally, we don't ask for any sort of proof. And that's why I emphasize that you need to be able to explain your finances very, very clearly, verbally.
Thank you. The next question is, I've been admitted to a PhD program at Georgia Tech, but I have not yet received my I-20. Can you explain the procedure to obtain an emergency visa?
So those are two different things. So the first thing I would recommend is that you basically stalk anybody at Georgia Tech that can potentially get you that I-20. So if you do need an emergency appointment, you can go online at that point in time and ustraveldocs.gov. Basically, you need to book any appointment you can find that's not a non-emergency appointment. That's very important. Anything. Just find something, book it. Then you'll go online and you'll follow the procedures for getting an emergency appointment. You could get lucky and get approved for an emergency appointment, in which case you can cancel your other appointment. Or if you get denied, you still have that placeholder appointment. So.
Thank you. The next question is, I have a B1 visa in July 2013. Am I eligible for the F-1 visa interview waiver?
I believe the last time I checked, it had to have been expired within 4 years, but you can go ahead and continue to check online. Maybe things do change, but that's the current policy.
Then the next question is, how does the process work for students who are waitlisted at certain universities? Since the decisions will come later, should we apply for the visa early or wait until the waitlisted decisions are available?
Well, you'll need your I-20 to come in for an interview. So you'll need to at least have one I-20 in hand, and then you'll be able to book the appointment. So it's your decision whether you want to go with that first acceptance and go ahead and secure a visa interview basis that, or wait on those other waitlisted schools. Ryan, do you have any additional input for that specific question?
As you mentioned, if you have your first choice university, you're still on the wait list, I would wait for it and see what happens. By June, they should come out with their decision, final decision, and you can make a more informed decision at that point. So as you mentioned, I would definitely wait for your top choices to come through. I have not yet received funding from any source. Are there scholarships or external funding sources that I can apply to now for doctorate studies? I have work experience and I am above the poverty line. So let me take that question since it's a funding question.
Right.
There are several sources that one can look at for financing your US study. In addition to the university's option of the TA and RA, which you might, if you're in a doctoral program, you might be able to get that after your first semester. You can also go on the educationusa.state.gov website. There's a section on finance your US study, and it has several search engines you can use to search for international scholarship, that is non-university based scholarships. In addition to that, you can also look at all the corporate houses in India as part of their CSR policies. Several of them have started to provide scholarships for higher studies, both in India and abroad. So you can look into those. Some of the better known ones in India are the J.N. Tata Trust, the K.C. Mahindra Trust, and other similar trusts. So look into all. So don't put all your source of funding in one agency. Just get several smaller amounts and build up to pay for your US education. Considering that the I-20s have just recently been shared with most of the students, this is for the MBA and the masters, when would the additional I-20 slot, when would the additional interview slots be opened, as currently only interview slots for September are available?
So in the next coming week or so, keep checking. They're going to be open up in mid-May.
There are several questions dealing with the visa slot availability. I have worked in South Africa for 6 months. So when coming to the US, will I need to present a police clearance certificate from South Africa? I came back to India this month.
I don't believe you will need to present a police clearance certificate from South Africa on a non-immigrant visa.
This is another hot topic about the funding and the documents required that students need to show. The question is, what documents should I submit with respect to proof of funding and academic documents in case I have a visa interview waiver?
So for your visa interview waiver, you will not be able to submit any supporting documents. We will take your DS 160 will be available to us on our system. So what I would encourage everyone to do is when you fill out your DS 260, it has slots for work experience. Go ahead if you have any work experience, whether it's freelance work experience, whether it's internships, so don't discount those internships and go ahead and put those on your SEAC. If you want to go ahead and put your grade point average, if you have a wonderful grade point average, there is a comment section on that SEAC. There's no hurt in you placing that on the SEAC. So for the interview waiver, we're only going to be taking the DS 120, which has all your information, and we're going to be looking at that DS 160. So those are the only things that we will take. We will actually not be taking anything else.
Thank you. The next question is also related to funding. What supporting documents should I submit if my sponsor is from the US?
So again, we will 99 out of 100 times not look at a single shred of funding documents. You should have already submitted all those in order to get the funding on your DS 120. However, if there's anybody that is sponsoring your education that's not your parent, it's even more important for you to be able to explain the funding, explain the relationship, and to be able to credibly talk about how you are going to be funding your education using that sponsor. I hope that's clear.
The next question is about an early start at the US university. I have a summer workshop starting before the fall semester, which starts on July 18th. Should I wait till May 18th to request an emergency visa appointment, or can I submit a request now?
You can request something now. Like I said, once those visa appointments open, you can simultaneously do both, but there's nothing barring you from requesting that emergency visa appointment now.
Another question related to the documents required. How many months of bank statements should we carry with us for the visa interview?
All the way 15 years of, no, guys, you're not going to bring bank. You don't have to bring bank statements. You really don't have to do any of that. I mean, if you want to bring a scholarship or a grant letter or, a checkbook just to be extra prepared, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to see that it's a snake line. There's not a lot of time. Visa officers don't have the time to be looking through piles of bank statements. So the interview is going to be pretty simple, and that's why they lean so heavily on your ability to describe your finances. They use it for 2 reasons. One, they want to know if you can fund your education, obviously, so they want to hear what you have to say. But also, if you're a master's student, MBA students, and engineering student, you should be able to talk to them in a way that makes sense, that's simple, and they're going to be judging your level of preparedness as well. So you need to be able to verbally talk about your expenses. So don't worry about the bank statements.
My I-20 states that $2,400 is the personal funds and the rest of the cost of attendance is covered by financial aid. So would having $10,000 in a savings account be sufficient to satisfy the financial requirement?
So if most of your education is funded, then you have a very low threshold for explaining how you're going to be sustaining yourself in the US.
Thank you. Another question that we have is regarding the income tax issue. My father is a farmer. Does it affect my F-1 visa interview?
You need to be able to explain how you're going to fund your education. What your father does is not as important as how you're going to be able to explain how he was able to save for your education, or who your sponsor is that's going to be helping you with that education, or what land you have that you may sell to fund your education, or what loan you're going to use to fund your education.
Thank you. Here's a very specific visa question. I was less than 14 years old when I had my previous US visa issued, and therefore have not been 10 printed. I have received an interview waiver and have scheduled an OFC appointment. I was wondering whether I would need to do my biometrics during my OFC appointment or just drop off my documents.
Anybody who has interview waiver appointments will need to complete their biometrics. Well, okay, let me take that back. So you just drop off your passport. What's going to happen is if you were under an age when your visa waiver, when your original waiver was granted, you may be called in at a later time to submit your prints later. So follow the instructions that were provided to you, but expect a call back from the consulate to go in and give your biometrics later.
Thank you. This is regarding the sequence that one has to do while booking an appointment. Can the SEVIS fee be paid before booking the visa appointment?
No, the sequence is the SEVIS fee. The SEVIS fee is paid after. However, I'm not a SEVIS fee expert, and so you'll have to double check. Ryan, do you know if the SEVIS fee can be paid prior?
Yes, so the exact order is not as relevant as long as you have the SEVIS fee receipt with you, because it's valid for 1 year.
Okay.
So you can. Just in the way the US Travel Docs website is set up, it's you pay the visa fee, then the SEVIS fee, then you book your appointments. So students generally follow that order.
Right. So as long as you can get in before a year, then you're okay.
Can an Indian passport holder student apply for an interview, visa interview in another country where his or her parents live?
You absolutely can, as long as you can answer the question of why you're applying for that, why you're applying in that country, because the visa officer will be curious. But if you can explain, you know, my parents work here and this is what they do, then it's you have the same threshold as any other visa applicant applying in India.
Another appointment related question: can we schedule both the visa appointments on the same day? I'm guessing he wants to talk about the visa appointment as well as the OFC appointment.
I don't think that is possible. There's a lot that goes into the OFC appointments, and then it needs to be loaded into the system. So there needs to be time between the two.
If I am unable to get an appointment before the date my school starts in July, should I wait till you release more appointments in June, or book the first available slot and then request an expedited appointment?
I would book the first available slot and request an expedited appointment.
So here's a question about the Dropbox appointment. I was able to book a Dropbox appointment, but I am confused regarding the receipt number that is required.
The seat number?
Receipt number. I'm guessing it's the SEVIS or visa receipt.
Yeah, so we had that last slide as support-India. You can go ahead and shoot them an email if you have any specific questions on that Dropbox, so you make sure that you do it correctly.
Another question on funding your education. Is an education loan enough to get the financial question correct? Or should I also have liquid funds and something else if the loan covers all my expenses in the US?
Generally, the visa officer would like to see that your education isn't 100% funded by the loan. They would generally like to see some amount of savings in addition to that education loan.
Another question regarding the Dropbox. If one is eligible for the interview waiver, when do we schedule the biometrics appointment at the VAC?
Generally, if you already had a visa, we already have your biometrics, so you can just submit what's required for the waiver, and we generally reuse your biometrics. If we're unable to reuse them, as in the case of the person below the age of 14, then we call you in just for the fingerprints. You still don't have to do the interview.
Another question is, what would be the process for those who have an existing visitor visa?
So you can apply via Dropbox. You're eligible for an interview at that point, yes.
And related to that, I have my F-1 visa issued, but my B1, B2 visa is not cancelled. Can I enter the US before the 30-day period on my B1, B2 visa and later leave the US and enter again on the F-1 visa?
I believe you can. I think that is something that is fine. But go ahead and email us with that question just to make sure. But generally, people have done that in the past. Ryan, do you know the answer to this question?
Well, technically, it's allowed, but one has to ask, why are you traveling so often to the US if you're going to be there in a couple of months anyway to study for an extended period of time? So while technically it's allowed, you might want to think twice about doing it.
So technically, yes, it is allowed. So on your F-1 visa, you're not allowed to go in 30 days before. So some folks do want to use their B1 visa to enter on before those 30 days, say if they want additional time in the United States. I'm just not quite sure if that complicates the F-1 status later on. I would email your advisor and make sure that once you enter on that B visa, you won't have any issues with SEVIS or exiting later on. So I would look into that question a little bit more, and I don't quite have the answer for you.
I would actually also suggest contacting the designated school official who issued the I-20, because they would be able to tell you exactly what you need to do to be in status.
Correct.
On the B1 or the F1. I was rejected for my visa interview during the spring admissions, and I'm trying again for the fall intake. Will that be a problem?
So there came out a policy that we are attempting to allow students that have never had a rejection take up the slots before students who have had a rejection are able to schedule. However, I don't know how far back this policy goes and how it's currently being implemented. So I would just encourage you to go ahead and attempt to get an appointment, as nothing is set in stone yet. And if you're able to get it, then that's great.
Thank you. We've got a lot of questions coming in. 400 plus questions have come in. So just
you have to pick the ones that haven't been asked before.
Oh, that's a good question. In the DS-160, do we need to show every social media active and deleted? Social media accounts.
That's up to you. I don't think there's a law or set rule on that. I think they would just probably want to see your active social media handles. I don't think you need to mention your deleted ones.
I'm a Nepal citizen, but I got rejected for my visa interview in India. Can I reapply from India, or do I need to go back to Nepal?
You're able to reapply in India just like any Indian citizen would be able to apply.
Another question regarding the funding, funds required. If a course is for 2 years, do we need to have show 2 years of funds to the visa officer?
So the threshold is technically you need to be able to explain how you're going to fund your education for the first 2 years. I mean, 1 year. However, generally you should be explaining the whole picture. And again, they're not going to be taking documents into consideration. So I would explain how you're going to fund the entire 2 years.
Here's another nice question. Am I required to pay the first semester fee before the visa interview?
No, so your schools have different ways of doing things, and I am going to warn you about, various agents that may ask you to pay for all of the fees up front. Just make sure that any fees or anything that you are paying, that you're communicating directly with the official at the institution in which you are, in which you're applying for. So some schools may have different financial policies, especially for international students. So that is a question for your institution, but make sure anything that you pay, you are paying, if it's tuition, to your institution.
Yeah, I would also add, if I may, that
Yes.
generally speaking, you do not register for classes till you actually get to the US. So you should not be paying for your fees before the visa interview. Generally speaking, there may be some universities that may ask you to put down a deposit. That's okay. But generally speaking, you should be going to the US, meeting with your faculty advisor, selecting your courses, registering for classes, and then paying the fees in that order. So the visa interview comes much, much earlier in that.
I would imagine that students have to register for classes prior to 30 days. So they won't enter the US until 30 days prior. So I don't think they would be applying, selecting for courses within those 30 days. They probably will select the courses once they select the school and have that DS 120, because classes do fill up quickly. So I think there could be so just to make sure that they go back to their institution and see how the institution works.
The next question is, can our siblings sponsor our education?
Yes, anyone can sponsor your education. You just need to be able to explain the relationship and to convince an American visa officer why somebody who is not your parent is going to be sponsoring your education. It's a little bit higher of a threshold.
So here's a question about applying for a visa from a different country. I'm originally from Ethiopia. I will complete my undergraduate program in June here in India. I've been admitted to several universities in the United States, and I'm planning to apply for the F-1 visa from India. Are there any special requirements for third country nationals?
So you can go online and check your country, and there's a reciprocity schedule that you may check in order to see if there's any additional requirements on your specific country. And so you can write, Google reciprocity schedule, reciprocity fees, Ethiopia, and all the information for your specific country online. It could potentially be different, but it could potentially be exactly the same. Generally, those fees are exactly the same, and there's nothing different about the process, but you can double check.
The question is about the loans not being approved before the visa interview. What if we have applied for an education loan and it has not been approved before the visa interview?
I mean, then you have a problem with how you're going to fund your education. So I would try to find another loan provider or another way of funding your education prior to the, is the question it's not approved because the visa has to be approved prior to you getting the loan approved?
No, the question is more about, if I do not have my loan approved, will it affect the visa interview?
Yeah, so it'll affect your way of discussing finances. So you definitely need to find a new way to discuss finances.
Oh, that's a nice question. Is there a difference between a digital and a hard copy I-20? Since the digital I-20 can be received without much hassle, should I opt for it?
So when you come to the visa interview, you actually ask a good question, because there is a point I'd like to make. Nobody is allowed to bring in electronics into an embassy or a consulate. So don't count on anything electronic to be with you to show the officer, including that I-20. It needs to be a paper form, at least for our purposes. For your purposes, carrying around a digital I-20 for any other reason, that's totally fine. But make sure you have a hard copy when you come to the consulate or embassy.
Okay. Another question regarding the interview waiver. I have a valid B1, B2 visa, but I haven't traveled to the US. Will it cause any issues during the Dropbox or the visa interview?
That is not an issue.
The question is about the visa expiring. My visa is going to expire in 2023. So I need to renew it before, I'm guessing it means this passport is going to expire in 2023. So I need to renew it before applying for the visa. Is that correct?
Yes, your passport should have 6 months validity. So yes, I would recommend. So 2023, you still have 6 months validity. At that point, you're totally fine, and you can apply for a new Indian passport in the US.
And I can mention from experience, getting a passport issued by the Indian consulate was a breeze. I put it in an envelope, and 1 week later, I had my new passport with my old passport stapled to it because it had a valid visa in it. So don't worry too much about it.
Yeah, they are really, for my Indian visa, when I came out here, I also applied in the US, and they were incredibly helpful. So yeah.
Okay, I've booked a Dropbox appointment, but haven't paid the SEVIS fee yet. I just got admitted to my dream college after booking this Dropbox appointment. What's the procedure to switch to the new university?
So go ahead and email us. It's possible. Go ahead and email us, and they'll give you the exact instructions to follow. So don't worry, it's totally fine, and you can go ahead and email us to learn about how.
Is there any specific place where we can get more information about the interview waiver process and how to go ahead with it?
ustravel.com, ustravel.state.gov are our websites. It should explain exactly how to complete the interview waiver process. Everything is laid out very simply online. Ryan, do you have any other additional suggestions? Does Education USA do a little bit of hand-holding on this?
Generally speaking, Education USA keeps an arm's length from the visa process. Our focus is more in helping the students pick the right university in that process, not so much with the visas. The only authentic source for the information about the visas is the consular section, and that's why that website and the support India email address is really, really important. You have to send an email to the support India email address to get an authentic response.
Yes, and go ahead and go on ustraveldocs.com. and visit our website, the State Department website, and you'll get all of the information on how to do visa waiver. They do try to make it as simple as possible online.
The next question is, what happens if my sponsor is a businessman and has variable salary every year? What response should I give when the officer asks about the salary?
You may frame it in a way that you feel comfortable with, and you can discuss the variability of his income, or you can give an average of, and you just need to be able to paint a picture of how he's able to sponsor you. You can give a picture of his business. You could talk about his turnover, the number of employees he has. Don't discount those pieces of information, just to give the visa officer a better picture of his ability to fund.
Thank you. Another question we've not seen before. Can we have a different port of entry than the one in the state of our university or closest to our university? And a follow-up question, do we need a transit visa for a layover in a European country?
So you need to look at the individual European country and whether a transit visa is required or not for that country. In terms of the port of entry, it's not a requirement that you go into the port of entry of where your university is. However, you may get scrutinized at that port of entry for entering in a state that's not necessarily the state you're going to eventually land up in. If it's a common port of entry like New Jersey or New York, and you're in a small Midwest town that doesn't have a port of entry, then it's totally fine. Just make sure that your travel pattern is making sense, or you're able to discuss why you're landing where you're landing.
And here's a question on the Dropbox. I took a Dropbox appointment for the Mumbai Center. Can I drop my documents in Ahmedabad, and how do I go about doing it?
So you're going to have to go online and follow the instructions for your drop location. You will probably need to log into your account and just select a different drop location. And there's probably a help desk email if it's too complicated of a switch. There is a way where that is possible.
Here's a question. In all the years I've been doing this, I've not come across yet. So let's ask it. How does the tattoo affect the visa process and the selected course?
I'm sorry, can you repeat? Tattoos.
Yes.
I see so many tattoos all the time on my visa applicants. Actually, I see a lot of women with the husband's name on their arms. It doesn't affect your chances for a visa. It really doesn't.
So I've got admission to 2 universities. University A is ranked much higher than University B, but I'm more inclined to go to University B. Will that cause any problems at the visa interview?
Actually, that can make you sound even more credible. You can say, I got into the top school, but this school, there was something about it that I loved. I wouldn't necessarily say a professor. I would really be honest about why you selected your second choice. So no, it shows the officer that you've really given this some thought, and your thought is going beyond rankings. There's other reasons why you selected institution B. You need to remember that we're human too, and we've all been there, and we've all been students. So we really do want to hear that heartfelt reason for why you selected that school.
And here's a question from a concerned parent. I am a concerned parent and would like to travel together with my daughter, for which I would need to apply for the B1, B2 visa. When will the B1, B2 visa appointments start?
So B1, B2 visa appointments are not going to open until September. However, sometime in June, B1, B2 appointments are going to open up more and more. So unfortunately, you probably will not be able to travel at the same time as your daughter. And that's not an expedited request that I see getting approved either. So yeah, I do wish her well though.
If I may add, as all parents are going to be concerned about sending their children to a foreign country for the first time. So we fully understand the concern that you may have. But
Right.
do know that US universities put a lot of emphasis on keeping all their students, including the international students, safe. They have special orientations for international students so that they can get familiar with all the resources that are available on the university's campus. So please make sure, advise your daughter to attend this orientation so that she knows what the resources at the university are, should she need help later on.
That's a good point.
My father is an American citizen and has applied for my green card, which we hope to receive next year. Will that affect my visa in the future?
You need to present yourself just like everybody else as a student hopeful, and you need to be able to discuss your finances, your education, and why you selected that school, just like everybody else. So I can't say whether or not it'll impact your interview, but I know that if you're as prepared as possible, you'll have your best shot at that visa, just like everybody else.
So the next question is regarding filling in the DS-160. Which duration of stay in the US should I fill out on the DS-160? The one mentioned in the I-20 or the actual duration of the program that's on the university's website?
I would put the one mentioned on your I-20. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter, but since it's already on your I-20, keep that consistent.
So if we have an I-20 from the X university and we get a visa slot, a visa interview on that I-20, and we later receive an I-20 from a better university, what changes are needed for the visa appointment?
So it's possible for you to do that. I would recommend you email us at that support-India. I'm sure they get that question. They're going to be able to give you the exact step-by-step for how to make that switch.
And I would also add that if you're thinking of changing your university, you'll have to go back on the FMG feed website and change it on the SEVIS website as well. You don't have to pay the fee again, but you have to change the name of the university there.
Yes, good point.
Does the I-20 visa allow for part-time work as well? Can you work on a visa?
So during your first year, you are able to get a limited number of jobs, say on campus, with that F-1 visa. It does not preclude you from working for specific jobs. So your university will be able to let you know what campus-related jobs that F-1 visa would qualify for. So yes, it's a little bit of a complicated thing, but go ahead and reach out to your university. You may be able to secure some campus employment that first year. The second year, then that opens up to CPT, OPT, and the rules change a bit, and then you're able to work in a field that's related to your course of study, that practical training. So that's in a nutshell how it works.
All about Dropbox. We've answered a lot of questions about Dropbox. I am eligible for the interview waiver. So how long will the duration take after I submit my documents to get the results of the visa?
So once you're able to submit your documents, you'll get a very quick turnaround within 5 to 7 days. We don't take in more waivers than we're able to bring out. So it shouldn't take that long. Once you drop it off, it should be a reasonable amount of time.
Here's a question that we deal with all the time. Does the ranking or the name of the university matter for a visa interview?
It does not. Your explanation for why you are going to that school matters more. We understand that there's all types of students. Not every single person is going to go to Harvard. Not every single person wants to go to Harvard. There are students who want to go to schools that get the job done, or have that specific program. Maybe it's not the greatest, but it's still a very good program and it's very solid. So I would encourage you to be proud of your selection. A lot of students may not be on the ranking, but still have amazing professors and amazing courses. I didn't particularly go to very, very high ranking schools, but I had a wonderful education. I had a really great experience with my professors. I had small class sizes. So there's life beyond rankings.
Yes. Thank you for that. I need to mention the US address where I'll be staying on the DS-160. I've applied for university housing, but they usually allocate the hall late May, but I don't want to delay my visa application. Can I mention university housing and the address of the university on the DS-160?
I think that's great. Yeah, you could do that.
Here's a question going very specific. At what time of the day are the visa slots typically released?
Even I don't know the secret to the timings of the visa slots. We've had so many people take up our visa slots that when we started to announce specific dates, they would just all be taken up. Our worldwide system would crash. So they keep a close hold on the time and date now for that reason. So I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Here's a question. It pertains, you've answered something similar, but this is a little twist on it. I am a minor, 17 years old, and I would like my parent to accompany to drop me at the university. Can she apply for the emergency tourist visa?
So if you are a minor, you can try to apply for an emergency visa waiver. Emergency appointment. I would say that's probably the only circumstance it would be considered. I can't say whether or not it'll be approved, but because you're a minor, I would encourage you to try.
I've been rejected for my visa once before. I'm not sure what the reason is and what I should do next if I apply again. Will my visa be approved a second time?
It could potentially be approved a second time. Many people's first time, the nerves get the better of them. They're not able to explain why precisely they picked the school, picked the program. Maybe now you have a little bit more experience. You've done an internship or you've done some online courses. So I would just encourage you to, discuss why you selected the programs you selected, be able to talk about your educational history, be able to talk about any work experience if you had it, and make sure that you're able to discuss your finances in a holistic way. Indians are often very humble. And out of respect, sometimes they give one-word answers or they don't give the whole picture. They'll answer directly instead of giving the whole picture of finances, or they won't mention their amazing score on this or extracurricular activities. Now is not the time to be humble. Now is the opposite of that. So go ahead and go in there with confidence and try your best to hit those points. And I believe that you do have a chance at getting the visa a second time.
let's just deal with the elephant in the room.
Okay.
There's a rumor going around that we cannot apply twice during the same year. How true is that?
So student season hasn't started yet. So things are still in flux regarding that rule. It could literally change tomorrow. It could change in June because things are not working. So I wouldn't worry about that. Worry about getting your visa right first time. I have been working in India since 2018, and I've never seen an administration more supportive of students and approving students than I do right now. So if you have your act together, if you go in there with confidence, I think you'll have a really good shot at that visa. And if you have had a prior rejection, still try to get an appointment. That rule is still in flux. We don't know how it's still gonna play out, and we don't know the parameters by which you can apply. Like, is it the season? Is it from certain months? That has not rolled out yet. So take that out of your mind and move forward positively.
Thank you. What is the process for transferring a B2 visa to an F1 visa?
You don't transfer a B visa to an F visa. You get a new visa. So your B visa will always be your tourist visa, and your F visa will always be your F visa.
Just thought we'd put it out there since it was actually asked.
Yeah, it's okay.
My immediate sibling is in the US after she got married and is on the green card. Does it complicate my visa application process?
It doesn't really complicate your visa application process. You know, if you're asked if you have family in the US, you could be honest about that. If you're not asked, you don't have to mention it. It's completely up to you. It's neither here nor there.
So what happens if I've been admitted to an MBA program at the university, but the I-20 major states management science? Is that okay?
The important thing is the important thing is for you to be able to communicate with your visa officer what program you're applying to and why you're applying to that program. I hope that makes sense. So we are not the I-20 police, but if we're looking at your I-20 and it says management science, you can, at the window says, it says management science, but I'm actually an MBA student, and here is why I'm doing my MBA program. If it's an error on your I-20, talk to your school official to get that error corrected prior to your interview.
Here's another question we hear all the time. I'm hearing that about rejections in one particular consulate. Does it vary from consulate to consulate? The visa rejection.
It really does. So it really does not. You know, I used to work at US Embassy New Delhi, and now I'm a visa officer in US Consulate Mumbai. We get new officers every 2 years. We get new managers every 2 years. Things are always in flux. And like I said before, we have a wonderfully supportive administration when it comes to student visas. So although it may seem, or you may think that one consulate has you have a better chance here, it's really not true. Your presentation is the thing that's going to get you an approval or denial. Everything else is so variable.
Here's another nice question. I've started filling the DS-160, planning to have my visa interview in Calcutta, but I'm only able to schedule a visa interview in Mumbai. Does that cause a problem?
No, that does not. And we know that some of our other consulates may not have the capacity that we do here in Mumbai. So a lot of students will probably have to do the same thing. So we're expecting people from all over India this year due to the limited number of appointments.
I had an admit for spring 2022 session, but my visa got delayed and I received my visa on the 31st Jan 2022. So I deferred my admission to the fall session. Considering the I-120-day rule, will I be okay when I go in August with my deferred I-20?
I think that's fine. You have a valid F-1 visa. You have a deferred date. As long as your visa is valid, you have your appropriate documents. I don't see a problem with traveling on your F-1 visa.
Due to some errors in my passport, I had to request a reissue of my passport. I will be getting my new passport by the end of May. Will there be any issues in the visa interview? Coming to the visa interview with a new passport?
No, you will apply with your new passport, go to your biometrics with your new passport, and attend your interview with your new passport.
We got just a couple of minutes left, so I'm just looking for the last one that we've really not touched on. And as I mentioned, we got 500 plus questions in this session.
I don't even know how that's possible. Are you guys asking 10 questions each at a time? One question per person.
So this is a good question. People with gap year and with no work experience, will it make a difference? Will it have any effect at the visa interview?
Okay, it's actually a good question. You have to be able to explain to the officer what you've been doing in that gap year. Okay, don't just say, hey, I was hanging out, at home. Okay, if you were taking online classes, even if they were LinkedIn classes, if you started a business, if you did your own freelancing, if you were helping your father in his business, if you were writing a book, you need to be able to discuss what you were doing in that year. It may come up or it may not come up. A year is not that long. I think a year is almost borderline okay, even if you don't have a very strong reason or any strong explanation of what you were doing in that year. What's more concerning is if you have multiple years, then you really need to fill in the blank for the officer. And I would anticipate a question on those couple years. But 1 year, an officer may not even, necessarily ask.
Okay, we'll take the last two questions.
Okay.
What happens if our visa gets rejected? How long do we have to wait before we can book a second appointment?
So as of now, go ahead and try for that second appointment. It's unclear how that system is going to filter out prior rejections.
And finally, what is the process to change the university after we've booked the visa slot?
Right. So we've got this question before. Definitely speak to your advisor at the university that you'd like to transfer to. I'm sure they have a set of instructions. And then for the technical part of the visa interview, email us at support-india at state.gov and ask us that question, and we'll send you an automated response for the exact instructions of how to make that change.
So that's it. We could go on, but we have reached, it's almost 7:50. We do have 5 pages more of questions. But I want to take this opportunity to thank Yvette for taking the time and giving lucid answers to the myriad of questions. And people may not be aware, but part of the reason why the consular section does this is to demystify the visa process. And I think Yvette has done an excellent job with all the questions that she has answered during this talk. So thank you very much, Yvette. We also want to thank the Public Affairs section of the US Consulate for organizing this. Please be in touch with Education USA. We have a series of webinars scheduled called the Prepathon series, which is meant exclusively for students who have been admitted to a US university. And it starts off with our session on May 20th at the online session on campus life. So keep an eye out for an email about the sign up link for that particular session and other webinars that we're going to be doing. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you all had a productive day. Please stay safe. And once again, congratulations on being admitted to a US university. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.